The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to you all for this webinar, which is on accelerating the transition towards climate neutrality through business and political action, a Central and Eastern European region perspective. My name is Martin Porter. I'm Executive Chair of CISL Brussels and a Senior Advisor to the Corporate Leaders Group Europe, which the CISL Brussels team acts as a secretariat to. And it's my pleasure to be chairing this afternoon and the meeting that we have. And I am very pleased to be joined by a colleague and co-organizer, Michal Veseli, who will say a few words in a second, just after I have made an initial set of remarks just to welcome you all, but also set out how we're going to run the meeting today. We have an excellent range of speakers for you today who are going to address the issues that we are all following extremely closely at the moment, and they come from the worlds of public policy, and in particular the three key EU institutions working on these issues, namely the Council of Ministers, and we're very fortunate to have somebody from the Czech Republic in particular to speak to us, from the European Parliament, and likewise we have a member of the European Parliament with us, and the European Commission. where we have somebody speaking from the perspective of Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans. I'll introduce them briefly when we come to that session, but after that, we'll then turn to hear from businesses directly active in advancing this agenda through their activities in the region. We have 3 different perspectives on that. And then we will hear also from somebody working in a city and putting all of these into effect on a regional level through the work of the city. And there we're very pleased to have somebody working from Budapest in that capacity. Before we hear from all of them, by way of introduction, I think the agenda is well known to us, and I'm sure we will hear from everybody how important it is to look at the issue of this transition to climate neutrality and the way that businesses are playing a role in this in a way which addresses, at the very least, the twin challenges that we are facing in the context, obviously, of the situation in Ukraine and the energy-related issues and security-related issues that throws up, but also the no less urgent and pressing issue with regards to the climate transition. And having an approach which combines addressing both of those is obviously fundamental. And we have a set of issues and proposals from the European Union, from the European Commission, which are now being addressed, and obviously how that is understood and developed in Central and Eastern Europe in particular is absolutely crucial, not least because of the proximity in particular to the Ukraine. So we are going to hear from everybody about how we're looking at those issues together. And in the meantime, before I pass to Mikhail, just a couple of words of housekeeping, I would say. The background on the different speakers, hopefully you have been able to see, but I can briefly introduce them when we come to that. But if you have questions, there are some we've received in advance. Please use the chat function, which hopefully you all have available on your screens. And I will do my best to follow those and with my colleagues ensure that where there are questions addressed to one or several of the participants, I will ensure that we can do that. I will also ensure that we are able to have some time for discussion between them and a Q&A, question and answer session at the end of each of the sessions, where we will be able to put those questions to them. And I will try to cover as much of the questions that we have before us in the time available. But we will be sure to finish by 4 o'clock CET. And if need be, we can finish before that if we've addressed all the questions, of course. There will be live tweeting during the meeting, so be aware of that and feel free, obviously, to participate as well. And on that basis, I think we should kick off, and I'm going to pass happily now to Mikhail for his words of introduction before we turn to the rest of the agenda. So Mikhail, it's a pleasure to be with you. Welcome and thank you, and over to you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at this discussion. I want to share the Central European business perspective, representing the Association of Progressive Businesses Change for the Better. We were established 2 years ago, where there was the first wave of coronavirus, and established as a manifesto of entrepreneurs, active citizens and think tanks. And our vision is that the Czech Republic can be the hub of innovation driven by the sustainability, and that just now is the right momentum to restart the economy to much sustainable one and greener one. And after 2 years, I have the feeling we have the shared vision, we have one voice, one direction, and it's also shared by the Czech society. We have numbers. 3 key numbers for us are 80, 69, and 70. According to our survey, 80% of Czechs agree that the Green Deal is important. 69% want more emphasis on sustainability, and 70% of customers expect business to be a leader in the systemic change. And we formulated recently 5 key enablers we see as the most important. First enabler is legislation processes. We as businesses need legislation that doesn't create barriers to sustainable business, support short permitting processes, differentiation of community energy or agrovoltaic, adoption of EU standards for sustainability and reporting, etc. Second, we need real predictable business environment. We need environment with clear rules, environment defining the strategic plan, and also the clear communication of the government that Green Deal is the direction for Europe, and it's also the opportunity for the businesses. Third enabler for us is education. We need people ready for the change. We need education system that that reflects the green transformation and reskills, upskills the people. Fourth, we need funding, resources, EU funding and national budget funding that is directed, we go straight to green transformation, and money doesn't support old technologies, but the innovation and new green technologies. And the fifth, we see a big opportunity now, also connected with the Czech presidency, with restoration law, nature restoration law, and we see that it's crucial the businesses are also involved because also their business plays a key role. And I believe that it's very common in CEE countries because we have a similar history. And also the legislation is based on similar historical basis. So I'm looking forward to share the different perspectives, both from businesses and people from cities and policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikhail. It's a pleasure, as I say, to be co-organizing this with you, and indeed to see the members of our respective organizations collaborating and participating together as well. And you pick out many of the points, obviously, which are crucial from a political and a business perspective for this to succeed. And indeed, what we are increasingly calling competitive sustainability to be successful, so that we make a business success as well as an environmental and social success out of this transition.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you very much indeed. Obviously, you're staying with us, so we look forward to maybe hearing from you, throughout and again. But maybe I could introduce the first session now, and if the 3 colleagues from the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the Council of Ministers, the Czech Ministry, would like to turn their cameras on, I'll briefly introduce you, and we can then hear from you in sequence. I know we may not have all of you for the full time, but we will begin with Pavel, and excuse my pronunciation, I hope I get this right, Zámyslický from the Czech Ministry of the Environment. He is Director of Energy and Climate there, so welcome, Pavel. We will then hear from a member of the European Parliament, Nikolai Stefanuta. He's in the Renew group and on the Environment Committee, so deeply involved in all of the issues which are in front of them at the moment, and Fit for 55, Repower Europe, and so on. And we will hear from Alexandra Tomczak, the member of cabinet of First Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans, who, as I'm sure you're all well aware, is right at the heart of all of these issues and proposals, and is directly involved herself, therefore, in this. So welcome to all three of you. Thank you for joining. We look forward to hearing from you. And let me invite, first of all, Pavel, for you to give us your perspectives on these issues, and to kick the meeting off from that perspective. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin, and it's my pleasure. Thanks you for inviting me to give you the perspective of the Czech Republic and as well the upcoming Czech presidency, because the Fit for 55 package, obviously, and RePower will be among the priorities of the presidency. Just they were published yesterday, so they are available after the government discussed them and approved them. So now there should be the whole info pack about the Czech upcoming presidency ready for everyone interested. So maybe briefly, I will talk a bit about the Czech experience. If I can ask for this next slide, the first slide, and another one. Yes, you can see from the fact that still, of course, we achieved a lot. I think that the experience of the Czech Republic that might be used for all members of the region, that the significant drop in GHG emissions was achieved since 1990. But of course, it's necessary to continue, and it's necessary now even speed up and to bring some new technologies which will really dramatically change the situation, because you can see that over the same period, 2020-1990, that there was a increase in renewable energy sources in the energy mix very dramatically. You can see now that there is a figure for low carbon, so it's renewables plus nuclear, and as well there was a important increase in heating sector. So there were the main drivers, of course, that reconstruction and changes in the industry and heavy industry, that they caused a lot of energy and emission savings. But we are, let's say, now in the middle way, and we need to continue quickly in order to be carbon neutral and climate neutral by 2050, and its own key decision and key investments just about the now, not be locked in the high carbon technologies. Of course, we have experience with positive projects, especially for households and municipalities. There are grant schemes and subsidies for renewable energy and for energy efficiency measures in the Czech Republic. It's just the question how to, let's say, attract and cover as well, not only lower income, not middle and high income, but as well lower income citizens, because now, of course, with higher energy prices, which are now 2 times, 3 times higher than in the past, how to take care as well about those who cannot afford it and who can now are dealing with the really high costs of bills for energy, electricity, and gas. So it's the priority we discussed, and it's going to be introduced the new energy savings program Light, which will be focused on partial energy efficiency measures, which hopefully will be more attractive for households. As well, we would like to get rid of coal, which is still used in the Czech Republic by 100,000 of households for heating. But of course, that the process now might be more difficult and more challenging thanks to the prices of gas, because people are, of course, trying to want the cheapest alternative. Please, the next slide. I would say the lesson learned from the current or the past and current phase-out coal process. It's important to say that the Coal Commission was established in the Czech Republic in 2020, and after many debates, many calculations, they brought with the proposal and with some practical steps forward how to phase out the coal in the Czech Republic by 2038. We have since December last year a new government. The new government is even more ambitious. So they put together the priorities with the more speedy coal phase out by 2033. But of course, that now we discuss the details, especially with current energy crisis, is even more difficult because the part of the recommendations of the Coal Commission was focused on replacement by coal, by natural gas, what seems to be now less and less a real option. And thanks to the not unclear or bit unclear situation with, of course, LNG, whether how this region will be connected with LNG terminals and what's going to be the price, which of course will be higher than the gas from Russia. It's uncertain whether especially some gas project in heating sector would have any sense. So it's now quite changed the situation, and we will have to find more alternatives. Of course, the debate on phase out of coal will continue, but now are under debate quite, let's say, short-term measures in order to, of course, provide electricity and heat for households and for industries during the next winter. So it's something what we need to think both the transformation and as well energy security and stability of supply. Please, the next slide. So here are the main challenges but as well opportunities. Of course, that the main challenges is how to even increase the installation rate for renewable energy. There is a big interest to start with energy communities in the Czech Republic. There should be quick fix of legislation which currently protects to build new energy communities. So hopefully this is going to be done within this year. As well, we need to increase renovation rate in order to be in line with the requirements of the EED, especially the Article 7. And as I mentioned, the heating transformation of heating sector is really challenging. The population of the Czech Republic is 10 million, and 3.5 million people is still connected, or it's getting the heat from central heating systems, which are from 70% based on coal. So it's a really huge challenge ahead of us. But of course, that I would say that opportunities are here, and we understand them. I would say that not only Czech Republic, but as well other members of the region, that they have a really good amount of money until 2030, especially thanks to European funds and the EU Modernization Fund, so that the money spent really can help to achieve the 2030 targets. Of course, it is going to be ambitious to achieve all of them. But thanks to the financial sources from a variety of funds, that I think that we should be successful. Of course, Fit for 55 package is something what should also help together with RePowerEU package. It's the situation is that still there are ongoing debates on compromises during the French presidency, with the aim to try to reach the general approaches on the level of member states during the ENVI Council on 28th of June. I think that the European Parliament is a bit advanced the positions, So we, of course, as the upcoming presidency, will be in the position to discuss trilogues between the EU Council and the European Parliament in order to reach necessary compromises on all the key files like ETS, non-ETS, ESR, LULUCF, but as well the Social Climate Fund or CO2 from cars. So it's going to be a lot of work, but I think it's important to try to find the good solutions and compromises in order to really speed up and allow the transformation, not only CEE, but the whole EU. So that was my beginning opening comments, but I'm of course ready to come back and discuss further. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavel. That sets the scene extremely well. And maybe I'll ask you a question which I'll also put to Nikolai and Alexandra as well. Given the subject that we're specifically focusing on with regards to the acceleration of the transition and in particular the role of businesses who are supportive of that, what do you see as the most important things that they can and should do now to support this at this stage? You have a range of them obviously participating as well as I think in the audience here. What is crucial for you to see from them right now?
I think in terms of businesses, of course, they are not in an easy situation because everything is dramatically changing, the changes, and you know that instability is the worst thing what the business can have. But let's say probably try to predict what's going to be the situation maybe 5-10 years ahead, not to be locked in the wrong investments. What we have seen in the past sometime that the companies were very conservative in investments, and that now they see that they are under pressure of further emission cuts. Of course, it's necessary to take into account the taxonomy and other let's say financial instruments and regulations, which will be important more or less for all companies, because that the taxonomy will be applicable almost in the whole chain of producers and companies which cooperate together or trade together, the goods or services. So let's I think from the perspective of businesses, they should plan and try to look a bit ahead, and maybe on good examples they can see around, so catch some positive signals.
Great, thank you. Well, hopefully you'll hear from some of them directly after this about those sorts of activities. But great. Well, with that as a first appetizer, so to speak, for the afternoon, let's pass now. I hope we can pass to Nikolai Stefanovich.
Hi, good afternoon.
Nikolai,
I'm being told that you cannot see me, but I don't have a button for a camera on this.
That's okay. As long as we can hear you and you can hear us, then I guess we'll just have to live without being able to see you speak. But I can hear you, and I presume others can. So
I really
welcome again, and the floor.
Regret it, but I tried every single thing I could. My name is Nikolai Stefanuta. I'm an MEP from Romania. It's a shame you cannot see me today. I'm joking, of course, but it is a pleasure to be with you, and it was such a pleasure to listen to Pavel and to Michal. It was for me breaking news that the favorability in the Czech Republic is so high, because the Czech Republic and maybe some other member states here in the European Parliament seem to behave in a way that indicate that they want to break the pace, perhaps, of the Green Deal. But that was perhaps a question rather of the past, and not so much of the future or the present. I'm trying to change the mind of many politicians in my own country, in Romania, about the opportunity to be on board on the Fit for 55 package. I think this is happening. I'm responsible for the CBAM, for Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, and for Energy Efficiency Directive. And I know that there's many challenges for countries like mine, Bulgaria, Poland, Slovenia, Slovakia, Hungary, or the Baltic countries. But I do believe that this is a needed deal. I had in my office businesses, stakeholders, and was trying to explain to them, and not only to explain, but foremost to listen, to see how they can be helped in this transition. I found it very interesting that, important to find pills to sweeten the blow, in a sense, because I know that many have to convert. So, for instance, we found a way to finance the modernization fund, which is going to be very, very important in having businesses be ready for carbon border adjustment mechanism. We found ways to push the schedule a bit on alleviating the free allowances, and to have backloading. That means more free allowances towards the end of the phase out period. We have also found ways to have export rebates for European businesses, especially with an incentive to behave sustainably. So I think it is important that we need to avoid carbon leakage and make sure that we are leading by example in the fight against climate change, especially in these times of rising geopolitical tensions. But also, as a leader in climate ambitions and policies, we have the chance to pave the way for others to join Europe. Also, the RePowerEU plan is a great opportunity, I think, for us, especially that and there's initiatives that are aimed at more vulnerable EU countries. For instance, with this platform to joint purchase of gas, LNG, and hydrogen. Also, there are also measures focusing on the development of solar and wind technologies, heat pumps, electrolyzers. So I think these kind of projects can help, especially with the investment range of 210 billion that is covered by RePowerEU, and also with the 225 billion that is available under loans under the RRF for this plan. Okay. A third component that is very important to me, I'm also someone who looks very carefully at local politics, is urban sustainability. I think for us, cities are places where we can cut carbon in energy, in transport, in buildings, especially through the renovation waves. And I think this is a good moment to do that. Now, for instance, on the ETS, so emission trading scheme, whether this should apply to buildings, to residential buildings or not, or when it should, there the answer is more complex. I think we should start slowly. I think we should start with public buildings and private buildings of a public nature, and also provide funds from the EU for that, and only then later think about residential and etc., because we don't want people to be frightened by the plan and start seeing this as a European tax on their house. So, but Europe is a highly urbanized continent. It has a key role in promoting urban development. So yes, we should definitely focus on that, especially also through the Horizon Europe research program, a line of creating 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. Now, last but not least, the availability of funds is very, very essential. It's very important. I'm a rapporteur for the budget for the European Union. I think that with the multi-annual financial framework, which I hope will be revised soon, and I hope the Czech presidency might support that, because it's important. The EU budget is already stretched to the limits, and if we have more crises, we will simply not be able to respond. And together with the next generation and the recovery and resilience facility, we have an array of instruments. The problem is, it looks like the timing to absorb all these, or maybe the rush, or maybe the lack of responsiveness on some of the member states. It seems that we are in a bit of a deadlock in some countries. We see that cohesion funds are not absorbed. Next generation money is not absorbed. So I hope to see that flowing more easily soon. I remind you that 37% of that funding is ring-fenced for climate neutrality and 20% for sustainable digital transition. And there's also technical support for it. So really, we have a good opportunity to use this. Just a word of conclusion. I think we need to bridge the gap between the Central and Eastern Europe countries and the Paris Agreement goals as soon as possible. I think we need to step out of the mentality that this is just an evil Brussels plan. I think it's where the economy is going and where the world is going, and I think we might have an opportunity to really be leaders and champions of this. Not to mention the fact that our children expect action from us. So thank you once more for having me as a speaker. I regret that my camera didn't work, but I hope my voice was hearable and understandable.
Yeah, it was fantastic, loud and clear. And if nothing else, it will hopefully give us a chance to invite you to another meeting where hopefully we will be able to see you in person. If I may, I will just ask one follow-up question, particularly given what you said about the fact that actually this is an agenda that has a lot of opportunity in it. And you mentioned what Michal said about public support in the Czech Republic being maybe surprisingly high from your perspective. Similar question to that which I asked Pavel, you've been at the center of an enormous amount of lobbying in the European Parliament over the recent Fit for 55 discussions. What else, from a business perspective and the sort of businesses here, do you think is useful to do now specifically to support exactly what you say from that perspective? Do you hear enough from these companies? Are they able to do even more than they're doing already on the ground, particularly in your country and the region as a whole? We're here as a group, if you want, thinking about how we can all do more. But what, from your perspective, would you see as being most important from that perspective?
It's a very interesting question, to be honest, because on the one hand, businesses adapt very quickly if they hear the right messages, especially because they don't like to be caught off guard. Sometimes I find that businesses are more adapted than politicians. I found this where we were fighting for longest possible transition period for natural gas, whereas some of the natural gas businesses were already thinking of building infrastructure for hydrogen. So we sometimes are conservative as politicians. We think that everything will stay as it was, whereas the business sector tends to be more agile, as it is normal. And I think we need to really speak to them a lot, and also try to understand together the give and take, because the businesses a lot of the time see their immediate losses. Let's say if we cut free allowances in some of the sectors. At the same time, they don't necessarily know what the opportunities are. So I think we should really speak more and speak in terms of give and take, and make deals with businesses more clearly, and make deals part of this, and that they have buy-in. Businesses should have buy-in in this process, or else who are we going to do it with,
Indeed, there's a very strong investment agenda here, as well as innovation agenda that requires the public and the private sectors to work together, obviously. So, well, I think you have a ready audience and set of participants for that discussion and conversation that you mentioned. And I'm sure that there will be many who will be keen to speak to you directly, as well as a group in the Parliament on this. If you are able and happy to stay to the end of this session, I would now like to turn to Alexandra, so we can hear her perspective from the European Commission. As I said, she works in the cabinet of Frans Timmermans, the Green Deal maestro, let's say. So, Alexandra, great to see you again, and welcome, and really look forward to hearing what your perspective is on this as well now. So, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. And well, I think it's difficult to talk about climate neutrality and energy targets and energy sector without first taking stock of where we are, because I mean, we're the 16th of March of June, so that's, you know, basically almost 4 months after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And frankly speaking, in these past 4 months, the world has really changed. I mean, it has changed on so many levels, but especially when it comes to energy policy, to climate, the reality in which we are working is totally different from the one that we knew a year ago. I mean, we have already seen over the past 10 years huge changes in the energy sector for those who have followed it. 10 years ago, coal was the cheapest form of energy, of source for producing electricity in the world, almost everywhere. If you looked at the map of the world, black would be, you know, the dominant color everywhere when it comes to the cheapest source. 10 years from that, we are in a very different reality, and renewables, whether it's wind or solar, are really the cheapest way of producing electricity. And when we have done that, that was driven by, you know, a real a policy based on here in the EU on targets for renewables, which have really driven this this big change. So we have already been living in a world that has been changing very fast, and in the last few months it has even more accelerated. So what do we see now? And we see a dramatic increase in the prices of gas, oil, but also coal. When I hear that, you know, sometimes coal is the solution out of this crisis, well, I'm tempted to say let's just have a look at the prices of coal right now, and they are also going through the roof. So on all of the fossil fuels, we see extreme volatility. And that means that there is something that happened not only in Central and Eastern Europe, maybe it happened, well, everywhere in the world, in Europe specifically, but I think in Central and Eastern Europe it's even more visible, that Europeans realize that renewables is not just something that you do for climate, something that you do to reduce the emissions, that this is a matter of national security. And I hear statements from Central and Eastern European leaders that I have not heard in the past about really clean energy technologies being at the center of security as well. That's the first change. The second change is that I think also citizens in Central and Eastern Europe are realizing now much more, and I see it from my own region. I come from a coal mining region in Poland. When I hear that my family who live in coal towns and who are heating themselves with coal are now thinking about installing rooftop solar panels, coming from families of coal miners, I think this is a real change in mindset. And we have not seen before such a big demand for heat pumps, for solar panels, for electric cars. So in a way, this crisis is just making it quite clear, I think, that here in Europe, the best form of energy for us is renewable energy, and that we should be going in that direction. But of course, it's all very challenging because, especially in Central and Eastern Europe, we have a big influx of refugees from Ukraine. Women with children, mainly in cities like Wrocław, which have 1 million of inhabitants, 220,000 people are Ukrainians. So we also see challenges related to the Ukrainian refugees, and we also have to address that. So we basically have two options. We either try to recreate the world that we lived in 4 months ago or 6 months ago, because energy prices did not start increasing in February; they started increasing way earlier, and I think this was probably also a deliberate move from Russia to try to destabilize our energy markets, running up into this conflict which started in February. So we can either try to recreate what the situation was with lower gas prices, with lower energy prices, and that will cost us a lot of money. if we want to move from 120 euros per megawatt hour of gas to 40 that we saw last year, this is going to cost tens of billions of euros every year, if you put it at the scale of the EU. And if we do that, in 3 years' time, we'll be poorer, and we will be just as dependent as we are today. So I don't think that's really an option. The second option is to make our economy more resilient and to invest in accelerating energy savings, energy efficiency, building renovation, clean energy investments. And this is what we in the EU decided to go for. With RePowerEU plan that was first proposed by the Commission in March, then accepted as the right way forward by the European leaders in Versailles, and then we made it more concrete with the EU RePowerEU plan. We want to do exactly this. And let me just say that seeing how the inflation and the interest rates are going, it is now even more important how we spend this money, because money is more expensive today than it was last year. So I would say that if anything happened, this crisis has really supercharged the European Green Deal, just like the COVID pandemic did. When we banked on the green recovery. Now we are also putting more emphasis on accelerating renewables, accelerating savings, also diversifying our gas supplies. And I'm not going to shy away from this. You know, we will be signing new gas deals because that's a matter of energy security. We cannot just move from one day to the other entirely away from gas. But we want to do it in a smart way. We want to be hydrogen ready. We want to do it as a union. To minimize the investments we need to do in gas infrastructure. And here again, Central and Eastern Europe is at the forefront of that. Many countries are more dependent than the rest of Europe on Russian gas, more dependent on the Druzhba pipeline and the oil coming from Russia. So really Central and Eastern Europe is at the forefront of all of these changes. But maybe let me just finish by saying that when it comes to businesses, well, the business case is now stronger also for energy efficiency and renewables. When we designed the Fit for 55 package, as always, we did an impact assessment, and as always, there is an energy model that we ran to prepare this, and we assumed that gas prices would stay more or less as they were. So, you know, at a level which is a third of what we see today. If you run the same model with higher gas prices, you suddenly see that it makes much more sense, business sense and economic sense to invest in renewables and to invest in energy efficiency. And this is what we want to do. We proposed higher targets for both because it's just the right thing to do in the current circumstances. And so what we see is businesses really responding to this, not only business, citizens responding to this. And the only hope that we have now is that businesses can actually follow, because there are a lot of supply bottlenecks, you know, labor, skilled labor shortages, etc. So if I can ask one thing from businesses who are participating in today's event is to help us identify where all these bottlenecks are, and to work with us to help address those, so that we can, you know, just do what needs to be done and what's the right thing to do for businesses and for climate and for the European citizens, because all the arrows are pointing in one direction right now.
Great, that's extremely clear, very helpful as well. And as you say, the bottlenecks are there because there's a much greater interest and therefore the supply chain actually is struggling to keep up in some respects. But we need to find ways to do that. So again, as with the previous speakers, I'm sure you will have people in this discussion and in the audience who are very happy to contact you to help try and identify how to overcome those bottlenecks. Maybe if I could ask a question to both you and Pavel, one that's come from the questions in the audience, which is specifically about how you see cooperation amongst countries and others in the region being enhanced? Is there sufficient cooperation? Is it what could be done to enhance it? How important is it relative to wider EU cooperation, if you want? And maybe I could begin, because there are infrastructures or structures in place where there is regional collaboration, obviously, on these as well as other issues. But maybe I could turn to you first on that, Pavel. Any indication of plans or what you see as useful from a regional perspective? And then I'll same question to you after that, Alexandra.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I will try to react quickly because I will have to say disconnect 3 o'clock, unfortunately, because I got something urgent that I will have to run and go. No, regional cooperation is of course important. I think so far was based usually on best practice sharing. For instance, I should mention for instance, cooperation between the Czech Republic and Germany, or Germany and other countries of the region, the project of OIKI, with the sharing of experience among the member states, for instance, in terms of training of municipalities and schools, in terms of knowledge on climate change, energy efficiency, etc., etc. So it's something what is already in place and what I would say it works very well. But of course, that maybe in future there will be need for more, let's say, cross-regional projects, maybe with focus on renewable energy and hydrogen, that some common project can exist. For instance, I see now that our region probably has a lack of capacity, for instance, to prepare and implement projects in the innovation fund. That usually majority of project is coming from only some few countries. So it's maybe the common problem, but not only us, but it's similar what I got from, for instance, from colleagues from Austria or Slovakia, that there is a lack of capacity to develop such a complex project. So I can imagine that in future that more member states or more regions can cooperate on one project, which will be beneficial to all of them.
Great, thank you very much indeed. Alexandra.
Yeah, well, I think we have, especially when it comes to energy, we see the need and the usefulness of working as a region. We are using this regional approach, you know, in the way we develop the European energy infrastructure. Under the Trans-European Networks for Energy, we work on the basis of regional groups that basically come together to discuss, okay, what projects, gas interconnectors, electricity interconnectors, in the future hydrogen pipelines do we want to develop together. So this is sort of a natural way or a natural format for countries to cooperate in. And now in this crisis, we see that this also happened very naturally for regions to regroup. So when we saw the interruption of supply of gas from Russia to Bulgaria and to Poland, Bulgaria straight away called for a Southeastern European summit to discuss, okay, how do we cooperate between the region, the countries in the region? Maybe you can get more LNG, then you free up more gas pipeline capacities, and so on and so forth. So now we are taking this regional cooperation model and we make it one of the central features of the EU energy platform, which is going to help us jointly procure gas and hydrogen. So we will establish these different regional groups so that regions can work together, not only on buying gas together, but also on using the infrastructure more efficiently together, and just having this regional dialogue, which is really essential. And the more we go into this crisis, the more it makes sense to really work on the regional and EU level. So for sure, this is totally the way forward. We already do it. We will do more of it. And I think the current crisis just also shows how important it has been to have invested in this cross-border infrastructure over the past years. Since the previous gas crisis we had, this is exactly what we wanted to do. And we are in a better position than we were, thanks to the fact that we have cross-border infrastructure, we can do reverse flows, we have ways of working together. So clearly that's going to intensify in the future.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. I know that you've got to leave. I'm going to beg your sort of indulgence for one more minute, both of you, just in the context of the forthcoming COP, the next international climate negotiation. Is there anything specifically from a regional and a business regional perspective that you think would be really important and helpful? Obviously, it comes under your presidency, Pavel, and is obviously an area where business is very active and wants to support. But do you have any thoughts or suggestions, just before we leave, briefly on what would be most helpful in that context over the next few months?
It's really a complex question in terms of, let's say, international negotiations and debate. I think that Glasgow shown that, let's say, interlinkages between the process of negotiations and the initiatives which have been launched in Glasgow, that there is a good link, especially in terms of ambition, and that the businesses can really provide impulse for further mitigation ambition, and then to help the whole process under the Paris Agreement to move forward and to close a bit a gap between the total ambition and 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. So it's still, we are not there, so we need to continue. Now in terms of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, it's on implementation, that a lot of parties and stakeholders is calling for implementation, so somehow to take stock on the initiatives. I'm aware that Egypt, as a presidency of the COP, they want to bring some new initiatives, for instance, focus on agriculture, water, sustainability. So let's see the new initiatives, but I think that there is a more space for practical cooperation, that probably some new projects will be proposed to help Africa with transition, with adaptation, with tackling of loss and damage. So I see particularly there the space for involvement of private initiatives as well.
Great, thank you. And Alexandra, same question and same brief reply if you would like.
Yeah, well, I think Central and Eastern Europe has can play a really interesting role in international climate negotiations, because this is the part of Europe that is going through the most rapid transformation economically, socially. And if we can showcase this a little bit better at the level of businesses, I know that many businesses in Central and Eastern Europe are already committed to climate neutrality by 2050. Fertilizer producers, electricity producers, if we can showcase this and also explain how they did it. Pavel had this nice slide with showing how much the emissions have dropped, how much coal was reduced in Czechia. If we can bring together all these experiences in a nice format, also at corporate level, and show it and discuss it with the Indians, with the Chinese, and with others, I think it could be very inspiring to show that, you know, the EU is not just a bloc of countries that have been fortunate enough to have hydropower and and have just always been low carbon. No, I mean, we also have done a lot of work in decarbonizing in this region, and to explain how are we doing it. And I think this will also help the region own this decarbonization story a little bit more, rather than you know, feel like this is being imposed on, or I say on us because I'm from the region as well, because I really don't think there's any point in not owning something that I think the region should be proud of having achieved all this progress that has been done over since the 1990s. It would be really great to showcase it more, I think.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great inspirational and optimistic note on which to bring this session to a close. I know you've both got to go now, so many thanks for staying with us this long and giving us your time. We will certainly be in touch, and as I'm sure many of the businesses and others on the the call and the meeting, we'll certainly try and take up on the suggestion to showcase best practice and examples to you. And we will remain supportive of your efforts, I'm sure. So thank you very much indeed. We will let you go, and I invite the next three speakers to join, and we will move to the next session. So thank you again, goodbye, and at the same time, hello and welcome to hopefully 3 new faces and 3 new voices. We're now going to pass from the public policy perspective to the role and perspective of businesses who are active in this region. And we've got 3 people who I guess are at the cutting edge of those activities. We have Eva Beluska, who at least on my screen is on the right-hand side. Welcome, Eva. Business Development and Transformation Manager for the Czech Republic, Hungary and Slovakia at IKEA, and a member of the board Change for the Better. So welcome. We will then pass to Barbara Hafner, who is Marketing Manager for Knauf Insulation in Slovenia. Welcome to you as well, Barbara. And then finally, we'll hear from Mariola Dominic, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who is Sustainability Director at Acciona Energía, I hope also roughly Spanish. Welcome to all 3 of you. I think we've just heard a great set of perspectives actually on the importance of the role of business in this region in particular, and the request for hearing about what they are doing and best practice and examples of that type of work. So they will no doubt be able to hear what you're saying after this meeting, so you can feel as if you're talking to them. But obviously everyone else here, many of whom are also policymakers from the region and indeed Europe as a whole, you know the drill. You've each got a few minutes to set out your perspectives on this, and then we'll turn to, much the same as we did last time, questions, answers, and a discussion, including with the advisor to the Mayor of Budapest. So let me first begin with inviting Eva to hear from you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear me well.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much also for inviting me, representing indeed IKEA, but also the Change for Better, which was very much introduced by Michal at the beginning. And you know, to actually start the sharing that I prepared is actually to put us in a context of what is really the important time, you know, for the humankind, which we are facing, I think all of us. And in IKEA, we definitely are committed, you know, to climate neutrality. And we also know that, of course, the heating up of our planet and climate is, of course, influencing and impacting not only our lives, but also our businesses from the many aspects. And of course, the last period of time has been extremely disruptive, I think, for all of us who are actually meeting today, you know, in this dialogue and discussion. So what we say is that it's actually the most important decade, we believe, and many of the businesses and policymakers will be writing the history, the kind of new history, you know, of that decade together. So I'm happy we are invited for this dialogue, and that is also what we aim when it comes to associating many businesses in the Czech Republic together, where we would like to use the strengths of those who have the best practices to help, you know, the others to find their ways to make steps forward and forward by one to achieve, because of course you often hear that it's easy for big corporations to take the significant steps, and it's not that easy for small businesses to do. But we see our role in it as well, specifically for Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, which I represent today. I also want to use one fact, and the fact is that the total IKEA, if I speak total IKEA, not the Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, climate footprint is today estimated to be approximately 0.04, you know, of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. So in some way you can say it sounds so little, but if you think of the total, of course, we feel extreme responsibility as a company, you know, and we feel it also for us a big opportunity. So why we should take the actions? You know, I always start with the question of why. And of course, the impact that we are foreseeing is a change on society in many aspects, with the disruptions happening around, but also for the businesses which are obvious. And for that, we believe with this why that the climate actions for businesses is also good, you know, for the business, but it's also good, of course, for the planet, you know, and everything that we aim here. And I think this is one of the myths a little bit, you know, because we very often hear that taking the climate actions is actually not easy or is not really a good practice for the businesses in many aspects. And then we can speak, of course, investments, burdens, bottlenecks we've heard, you know. But I think a lot is looking at it, and I think Pavel has said it, you know, into the longer perspective, and that's how we do it here, and then finding our way on that bumpy road, you know, to reach the goal. And I think one of the successes, which I can confirm being already 18 years in IKEA, is that we always set 100% goal. And if you set to the business 100% goal achievement, what happens is that from a mindset of a people who work in your company, you know, and in a dialogues you are taking, you don't look from the beginning on compromises. You are looking and striving for achieving the 100%, which is always difficult to do. You achieve 80, and then the last 20 is always becoming harder and harder. But I think it's at least one of my learnings, you know, which I've learned and I try to apply. Of course, if we look on taking climate actions, it is confirmed that it increases cost efficiency longer term. And I think it's important to really understand and provide as one of the facts. It also, we believe, in a longer term will lead to the regulatory certainty. I think today we heard a lot about uncertainty. We believe it will lead to the regulatory certainty, and of course, by that, avoiding the future costs. And it creates definitely potential for the new revenue streams, as we say. You can think from the circularity streams, you know, and how you actually become the circle business, how you transform your linear business to fully circle, which is one of the commitments we have in IKEA by 2030 as well. And I would say last not least, of course, we believe that taking the climate actions from a business perspective definitely increases the customer trust, but also lower the customers' and consumers' costs. So what we have committed, we have actually committed to become, or our ambition, I would say, which ambition is that we are committed, is to actually become the climate positive business by reducing more greenhouse gas emissions than IKEA value chain emits, while growing the IKEA business, which means that is the correlation, you know, that we actually work in. And of course, it is in connection to contribute to limiting the climate change of 1.5% in line with the Paris Agreement. So we take the scientific approach here, you know, with a lot of strong collaboration, I would say, on a corporate level. And we are trying to find, of course, the collaboration on a, I would say, local Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia perspective. And today we speak very much about the Central European region. Which means if I would look into Central European region, you know, which I represent today, what is important to say, and I think Michal said it a little bit at the beginning, is that we know people are overall interested in sustainability. And if I would look in our region 5 years ago, it was not the case. So we see the switch of a mind, the switch of an interest of the consumers, the trends of changing behaviors, which means I think it's not questionable why businesses should take the actions, you know, and responsibility. It is confirmed by what Michal said at the beginning, and I will put it in a context of Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, that actually 79% of people expect businesses to take significant actions towards climate neutrality. And only 14% of people are willing to take effort themselves for actions, which for me is a certain red thread. If you think of the expectations on the businesses, while being a person myself, and there is only 14% people saying I will take an effort for actions. I think businesses and politicians and policymakers take an important role of how we can really motivate, inspire, and provide enough simplicity and clarity in the solutions that every single consumer in our region can use to help to actually decrease, the heating of our planet, and then taking the climate actions. Which means what we have already achieved, and if I would maybe put it in a context of what are our biggest focus areas when it comes to the local projects, I would speak about two aspects. One is definitely connected to one of our own operations, which means we definitely are committed, and we have had a roadmap and plan definitely connected to investments when it comes to using renewable energy and making our units to be self-standing, and independent. So all our units would be definitely fully on renewable heating, cooling, plus PV panel installations. We are, of course, as a business, and I'm very humbly transparent about it, facing challenges as well when it comes to return on investments, of making these actions, because it's a huge investment we have to do in our region. And we also know that we have a lack of providers, actually. And the question is, how that can be supported a little bit more, within the ecosystem that we are having, because it's not only the businesses that will accelerate definitely this transition, but I think it's also the household and the consumers who have significantly the same need. Today we are already in Slovakia almost 100%, so that's kind of with the proudness. We are in Czech Republic almost 65% in our goal ambition, when it comes to usage of the renewable energy in our units and operations. With Hungary, we are a little bit further, it's 71%. So I think it's been really a lot of efforts. If I would use example number 2 of a project, our ambition is to become actually zero emission, to have a zero emissions deliveries in Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia by 2025, where actually customer transportation is about 9.7% of the value chain climate footprint. And that's why we have set on a total income level, that is one of the focus areas as well. And here, in a very honest way, we are only reaching 10% by end of this calendar year. And why only 10%? The infrastructure, the support for making that really actionable is a huge challenge when it comes to IKEA. And we are really facing decisions where in many aspects we are forefront toward, the legislation, the guidances, the supports needed, the infrastructure readiness, and actually our drive of the agenda where we are forefront the legislation is our own bottleneck, if I would put it in a constellation. So I think Nicola was really saying as well when he presented that businesses are more advanced, than actually politicians, and I can confirm it here, for this specific topic. And here, I think not only as IKEA, but in many aspects of what we discuss with the small companies and all the members for the change for better, that is actually the mobility, and the green mobility is a definitely topic which all of us will need to soon follow. So that's also, I think, one of the topics. And then, circularity is a big agenda for us, where we are really implementing our circle hubs, and we are implementing completely new services for our customers, like guaranteed buyback service, where consumer or customer buys a children's product and they know exactly in 2-year time for what price we buy it back for them. So it doesn't go to landfill or unused, and many more. So I would like to highlight actually these regional differences when it comes to starting position of European countries. I think we cannot say that all of the European countries is on the same kind of position as a starting point, which is of course leading to possible complications, in the terms of the transition towards the climate neutrality together. And we feel that in our region, we are further in that transition from some aspects than the legislative framework, which means my call for action would be with the set ambitions, and to help to the, I would say, small scale of the many private business sectors as well in our region, to really aim for a stronger collaboration and partnering when it comes to creating the environmentally friendly business ecosystem, and in connection to what Michal said for Change for Better at the beginning, to have a much better transparent and collaborative discussion with, of course, policymakers, politicians, but also the public sector NGOs, because our association is one which opens the companies for the best practice sharing. And I think that's becoming really our strength today as Change for Better.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, there was so much there, and I think I can't resume all of it. Of course, it wouldn't be the place, but I think the point you make about aiming for 100% change is quite significant, and in a way the Paris Agreement set a target for that, which is now being followed up, whether it's 0 or 100. But it does change the way we think about these challenges or opportunities, because you change the whole system rather than just a bit part of it. But we'll come back to the point about the leading role of business relative to public policy in a way, but also the fact that you mentioned that consumer opinion and public opinion is actually much more supportive than we might think, or that we used to think, which obviously is very relevant from a business perspective. But we'll come back, as I say, to that in a second, or when we've heard from others. But I'd like to turn now to Barbara. I think you have some slides you wanted to briefly talk to as well. So welcome to you as well, and we look forward to hearing your perspective on this.
Thank you very much. Thank you for invitation. I'm coming from the company Knauf Insulation. Knauf Insulation is a global leader in insulation products and solutions. It is also a part of Knauf Group. Just a short introduction of the companies. Maybe you can go on with the slides. I put there few facts about the Knauf Group, Knauf Insulation. And I'm coming from Slovenia, where Knauf Insulation have a quite big plant and around 500 employees. But mostly I would like to focus today on our sustainability strategy, which is composed from 4 pillars: put people first, achieve zero carbon, deliver circular economy, and create better buildings. Better buildings are those where I'm going to focus today. As we are insulation producers, of course, insulation can contribute importantly on the for better buildings. From energy savings, less heating, less cooling, less pollution, improved living conditions, sustainability of the whole construction, and of course taking care for planets. Just to make a short overview about the benefits which insulation is bringing to better buildings. And if we go on, please, when we are talking about the insulation, of course, we are automatically talking also about energy efficiency. Why energy efficiency and how? We all know, of course, that nowadays we are in a very special situation. We are spending too much energy. The constructions, the buildings are spending over 40% of energy. We have many energy supply issues from the price view and from the availability view. We have a lot of climate issues, and of course, we are very much supporting renewables as a solution of current situation. It is a kind of logical thing, but of course, we shall not forget about energy efficiency. And we estimate that energy efficiency should be somehow in the first step of the whole process. We know that Europe is already dealing with many goals, with many plans how to deal with the current situation about the energy and about emissions, from greenhouse emissions reductions to carbon neutrality. Currently, we are dealing with how to be less dependent from Russian gas, for example, and so on. And we are also facing with the new document, Repower Europe, when again energy saving is a priority, and then we have an initiative for higher use of renewables and diversification of fuels. So this is all very well known, and if we ask ourselves how can we do how can we make buildings more efficient, how can we reduce consumption, how can we cover energy needs, and how can we make buildings less energy wasteful. Of course, we need to take some conclusions and to put best-in-class standards for new buildings regarding energy efficiency, and of course we need to ensure deep renovation for existing buildings. And when we are talking about the deep renovation, if we go on, please, as I mentioned, it is very important to be aware that first step in making envelope of the building less energy wasteful, because this is somehow logical step, because first we need to save energy and then to solve all other things. So the issue is that, for example, insulation of the envelope should be between the first steps, and of course following steps are very important, like implementing efficient technologies, renewables, and other measures. But when we are talking, like I mentioned already before, about benefits of such approach, we can find in insulation or in energy efficiency measures technical, social, and environmental benefits. So energy savings, improved living comfort, and we can also count with lower building maintenance costs, with prolonged building lifetime, acoustic and fire safety of the building. Of course, also saving planet and climate care. And at the end, of course, I put here only 2 economic benefits, but there are much more of them, like employment rate and also turnover. So I want to give you a few additional arguments for this energy efficiency first approach. Recently, Building Performance Institute of Europe prepared a study where they somehow research how building insulation can reduce fossil fuel imports and boost Europe energy security. So they somehow put together all potentials from 8 countries in Europe, what is the current status of building stocks and what can be renovated. Of course, renovation, they calculated on the EU level per country. So this would be a kind of renovation goal. And I put here only 2 results of this research. And they found out that if we insulate all building stock in these 8 countries, we can save 45% of final energy. This is one quite important number. And further, they also make some additional calculations. And they found out that with that weight, with insulation of building stock, we can save 44% of natural gas. So these are 2 numbers where I think we see them as the facts, and we know that the energy efficiency measures must be taken into account. And if we go on, I would like just to make a short conclusion to expose few takeaways, which I hope audience will take to their homes and to their offices. So first one is make the right steps in renovation process. This is crucial. Right sequences of priorities and energy efficiency first. When you're talking about potentials coming from insulation for energy reduction, we can see on the level of building 50% and on the level of countries 45%. And okay, we know that Fit for 55 project, including EPBD, is of course quite ambitious on that area, but of course we need to take into account that energy efficiency first must be somehow included, and that we need to push promotion of energy savings. Of course, with the new EPBD, we should include higher requirements in energy efficiency and higher requests regarding renovations. And when we are talking about Repower Europe, it is now somehow presented, but it will be localized on the country levels. And therefore, it's very important that also countries understand that energy savings are basic, are priority on that area. And also, I can expose here one proposal from Repower Europe, implementation of reduced VAT for building renovations could be very useful boosting tool for somehow increase this awareness. And not, but at the last, I would like to stress also on the funds, on the money, where again we need to be careful that they will be launched on a way that energy efficiency will be taken into account in the whole process. So this is the message which I want to give to all of you today. So energy efficiency, we think, is currently more important than ever before, because we think that the best energy is saved energy. And like Ms. Alexandra invited us, we will be more than happy to support the Commission with all those studies, with all the business case of insulation and energy efficiency industry to support all those presented facts.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed.
From my side.
And don't forget the bottlenecks that she also wants to hear from you about, so that we can overcome those. Thank you. We'll come back to some questions on that as well as others in a second, but I'm going to pass now to Mariola. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you now. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking CLG Europe for inviting me on this panel. It's my pleasure to be here and represent Acciona Energía, a publicly traded Spanish renewable energy utility. In Europe, we are currently experiencing an energy security and price crisis due to our overdependence on volatile and imported fossil fuels. This highlights the need to accelerate the energy transition to strengthen our energy security and resilience, and hence guaranteeing a sustainable and fair economy. At Acciona Energía, we see this challenge as an opportunity to provide society with the most suitable and effective solutions to reach a decarbonized economy. With more than 11 gigawatts in operation and an attainable 20 gigawatts target by 2025, we produce 100% renewable electricity in 16 countries worldwide. Furthermore, we also support leading companies in their quest to reduce their carbon footprints in a wide range of sectors. And our ambition has always been to lead the fight against the climate emergency. And for that purpose, we rely both on our core technologies, mainly onshore wind farms and PV plants, as well as on a new generation of solutions such as green hydrogen, electric vehicle charging, offshore wind, agrivoltaics, and energy efficiency, among others. Acciona Energía is a partner in the first industrial hydrogen hub in Southern Europe, the RePower2 Green Hydrogen project in Mallorca. Green hydrogen will drive the decarbonization of the Balearic Island through a range of applications, such as the supply of fuel for public transportation or the generation of heat and energy for public and commercial buildings. In our opinion, energy efficiency is also critical to effectively combat the climate crisis. And last year, we signed a large energy services contract with Gijón Cities Council, a city in the north of Spain, which aims to speed up the city's green energy and digital transformation process. Over 15 years, the project is set to reduce electricity consumption by 70% and CO2 emissions by 30%. This will be achieved by utilizing a variety of renewable energy production and storage technologies, as well as by encouraging innovation and the formation of energy communities. We also view electric mobility as an emerging megatrend, which is essential in achieving global decarbonization targets, and consequently, we have recently entered the EV charging market and have set ourselves the target to implement a public network of 25,000 charging points by 2030. Acciona Energía has been in the Central Eastern region since 2013. It has renewable energy generation assets mainly in Poland, and Ukraine, Hungary, and Croatia. We are also exploring further opportunities for offshore wind developments in Poland, having recently applied for a location license to develop offshore wind assets there. But we need to accelerate the transition, and the required changes to maximize the contribution of the renewable energy sector to this include overcoming structural bottlenecks, such as permitting and access to grid, the scaling of energy efficiency, acceleration of electrification, and accelerating the shift to electromobility. We therefore welcome the RePowerEU plan, as we believe that it will significantly contribute to the shift away from Russian fossil fuels and to strengthen energy security in Europe, whilst simultaneously accelerating the electrification of the energy demand in a sustainable way. At Acción Energía, we believe that the measures proposed in this plan, in the RePowerEU, are adequate to face the aforementioned challenges, and we specifically welcome the following measures: the increase to 45% of the objective of minimum penetration of renewables in 2030, acceleration of permitting for the installation of renewables, which is currently one of the main bottlenecks in the sector, classification of renewable energy as a superior public interest, and introduction of designation of go-to areas with shorter procedures, raising energy efficiency targets by 13 until 2030, and the commitment to expand Europe's industrial capacities to ensure that they can supply a significant part of this projected increased demand. We believe that it's critical for European countries to develop set measures as quickly as possible, for example, accelerating their application and ambitiously updating their national energy and climate plans, and providing the public administration with sufficient resources to develop these measures, especially those related to permitting and access to grid. The green transition can only be achieved through synergies between business action and ambitious climate policies, both at a European and a national level. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very interesting as well, and much in common with what was said before, notably on energy efficiency, obviously, but also the bottlenecks that you need to overcome in this region as well as elsewhere. We will now hear from Eda Amon, who is Chief Advisor to the Mayor of Budapest on climate affairs. And I would also invite, therefore, Eva, Barbara, and Mariola to rejoin us, since I think she is giving a response to what you and others have said. And indeed, Mikhail, if you are there and able to rejoin us as well, you're more than welcome now. Once we hear from Ada, we'll open things up a little bit more. So, yes, Ada, you've got a lot to respond to, I think, from all of these different perspectives. So I hope you heard all of it, and we look forward to therefore hearing what your perspective is as of now. So over to you.
Surely I heard and listened carefully. Thank you very much, dear organizers, distinguished speakers. It was an excellent lineup of brilliant speakers, so it's very difficult to contribute further ideas or issues probably, but I still try to do so. Well, thank you for having me. First of all, if you ask me about the city angle or city perspective, obviously cities are very important from both mitigation and adaptation aspect. From the mitigation side, obviously these are big emitters, as a lot of people live in cities, and most of the emission of the cities are coming from buildings. So it's well said that obviously energy efficiency is one of the main elements and the core of our mitigation actions in all of our cities. And this is not something what usually municipalities influence, what we can facilitate, what we can encourage, but obviously private investment, people's investment, and obviously in Central Eastern Europe, non-refundable subsidies should come to accelerate and, you know, dial up the investment into that particular sector. The other thing is adaptation, especially, I mean, if you look around in cities, obviously there are two main issues in Central Eastern Europe: heat waves, which are really, really dangerous and risky for non-resilient people, let's put it this way, and water, the rain shock a city can have. It's obviously something we can, as the infrastructure builders and owners, can have an impact on, and it's much cheaper. If you look at our climate strategy, you would see a couple of €100 million which should go into this direction, while in terms of mitigation, a much bigger amount, billions of euros, should cover that needed investment. I cannot agree more than what Ms. Tomacek said about this issue, and especially regarding the importance and the significant increase of importance of diversification of energy sources, renewables, and efficiency, which seems to me that with an invasion, with the Ukrainian invasion in the neighborhood, people and decision makers understood much, much better the imminent danger losing one source of energy can mean to the society and the whole industry of a nation. So, well, opposite to climate crisis, which is a very slow but already very, very tangible change in our societies and in the nature in our environment. So security of supply seems to be a much urgent and much more important and much better understood idea than climate mitigation. So we have to grab that possibility to work on both. And security of supply is usually meant and defined as a national interest, but you can describe it within an urban context as well. I mean, Budapest, what I'm representing at the moment and working for it, is a city of 2 million. We are consuming sometimes 1/4 of the electricity in the country. So we have to bring all these electrons into a place which is only 3% of the surface of the country, which is obviously it is a bottleneck in many cases, and will be even more so if we turn heating and mobility into electricity consuming sectors. What I would put into the context of Central Eastern Europe, obviously Central Eastern Europe lost, there was a sharp decline in greenhouse gas emission in the past, but we have to all know that it wasn't a deliberate impact of, or it wasn't the impact of deliberate policies of these countries. And we also know, and if you represent climate conscious companies, then you are aware that Central Eastern European governments are not really climate friendly and not really encouraging and not really ambitious in this matter. I was previously working for different think tanks and NGOs, and I'm well aware that most of your companies are having much more ambitious pledges than our governments. So you would be rather in the place of pooling the government and, you know, bringing up the ambition and dialing up the ambition of the government. And therefore, what Alexandra also said, that identifying those bottlenecks, what you experience in your operation, like what holds you back in patching all your roofs with solar panels in cities like Budapest. What is the problem of installing a very efficient heat recovery in your shops? What is the problem? What is the bottleneck of not getting enough insulation materials on people's homes? We all know that. So we have to tell to the government how to behave, how to change policies in order to come along and help you to prosper in these cities and in these region with the same power of fueling climate solutions than in Western Europe. And finally, in order not to dominate all the last words, Budapest is part of the 100 climate neutral cities, climate neutral and smart cities initiative, and there are 25 of these cities situated in the Central Eastern European part of the European Union. Obviously, these cities are a bit different from their Western peers. They have different financing structures. They have much less expertise and staff working on environmental issues. We are very lucky, by the way. We have a quite big group of 30 people dealing with environment and climate in Budapest. But still, I mean, knowing that all these, the people, the city residents are much more aware of climate change, they feel it, they are aware that they have to change, and they are eager to learn how to behave in a changing climate in the city and how to contribute to the solutions and how to learn to live in a climate-friendly way. And if I may say, what we need to make sure that they don't have to think about it. They have to live cheaper and more comfortable while still choosing the climate-friendly options. And this is the way, this is the thing what we need to provide. This is the type of, they don't have to think climate-friendly. They have to live in a way what is easy for them to live climate-friendly. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And that gives us actually a perfect chance to get feedback on what you've just said as well. I've got 2 or 3 sort of combined questions that we've got from the audience, which I will put in the mix and suggest that I pass from Eva to Mariona to Barbara to Michal and give you a chance to select what you've just heard or aspects of what I have from the audience as well to speak for a few minutes each before we wrap up. I mean, you make the point very well there, Ada, about bottlenecks and needing to explain to governments in the region in particular what those are, how to overcome them, and so on. It links to some of the questions we've had from the audience, one of which is, what is the extent to which more public-private partnership is possible, necessary, how to do that without conflicts of interest as well? Actually, that was a subsidiary part of the question. So maybe public-private partnerships, if you want to reflect on that. The investment case, I think, is becoming stronger and stronger from what everybody has said, but there's still very often a relatively high upfront initial investment. And what is it that's necessary to help overcome and enable that to nonetheless take place? What is it that is necessary for companies to overcome that high initial investment, if that's an issue? Thirdly, how does the work that a company does also take into account the whole of the supply chain, the value chain? Is there more support from the way policy is being developed regionally, internationally, or indeed locally to enable that, which of course in the end also ends up talking to the final consumer, as well as obviously upstream as well. So we have a range of questions for you, all of which were also related to the regional perspective or your local perspective. Maybe I'm not going to direct one question at each of you, but if I give each of you a few minutes just to reflect, then we'll try and conclude in another 10 minutes or so and just wrap up at that point. So if 2 or 3 minutes each maximum, but I'll start with you, Eva.
Me?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's difficult to answer these questions because Budapest has a very special position in Central Eastern Europe by not having a lot of space and room for maneuver, as the government is really strict on and you know, limiting our space in that. Although I see PPP as a very, very good opportunity for business to come into public, to invest in public, the greater public good. And there are many ways to do so. The other thing is like this, but I guess the initial high investment in the course of ever increasing energy price is, especially if we are talking about climate investment, it's not really an issue anymore. Although obviously energy price will not go like that, and it will fluctuate, and the volatility will probably diminish in a way. But at the same time, there are many ways of pushing that initial investment into other private players, like using the power purchase agreement structure or similar of that. If we are talking about solar or wind, that would be certainly something. And if we are at the wind issue, I think you would, if you look at the map of these countries, you would see something like wind is really somehow in a very low priority of the government, and they are not really giving green light to this source of energy or technology. And it was true for a long time in Poland as well, and I'm very happy that they opened up these new avenues for this technology. But in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, it is obviously something like a black sheep, and I think companies and corporations like you have a great responsibility to push these governments to open that up for otherwise we are not going to have a healthy mix of energy sources in our portfolio.
Great. Well, that's the perfect way to pass to Eva. I hope you are able to hear me and that we can just a couple of minutes each, I think, and then we'll, if that's okay, and then we'll wrap up.
I will be quick. I will maybe have one reflection around the sum up of the questions that you have said, Martin, and it is connected to what I shared actually to the members of the Change for Better just lately, one month ago. And I said, if we look at ourselves from the retail perspective, you know, it's very common from a mindset perspective that we stop considering the climate footprint only within our own operations. But if we really want to do the change, you know, and how we should become the promoters of what is really needed to be taken, we were using one fact, and it is that 64%, you know, of the total climate footprint of the entire IKEA is made only by the supply chain. So my invitation was actually for the companies to look beyond own operations and to do really an intensive work when it comes to collaboration with their suppliers within their supply chain to influence actually the climate footprint. And one of the examples can be the strengths, for instance, we have in IKEA, which is our IWA standard kind of code of conduct, where we are really evaluating the suppliers on the energetic efficiency as well. Also, we have the social, you know, aspects of it. I mean, that is important. But also, for instance, we are working on purchasing developments, you know, and agreements, you know, on renewable energies, you know, for our supply chain as well, to actually help them to transform. And that can be the strengths of, I believe, many of the participants joining today as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Mariola. You're on mute, I think.
I'm sorry, was on mute. Yeah, I agree with Ada regarding the private and public partnerships. I think they are a good way to build together and to a good opportunity to create synergies and to build a better opportunities for all. And regarding the supply chain, I think this is a very good question, and within we have to combine a local and an international approach, you know, because supply chain is another of our main pain points in the renewable sector, and we have to combine those approach to find solutions to diversify the materials and to afford other and to manage some questions that are now on the table, for example, the human rights in the supply chain, and we think we need a combined approach.
Very good, thank you. Barbara.
Yeah, thank you. Regarding public-private partnerships, I would say that in the area of energy efficiency, we have quite a big opportunity. We have many experience already on this area, and I think that this will be one of the way how we will push energy efficiency also further. So we have evaluated that as a quite huge, big potential. Regarding supply chain, I would rather talk about reduction of supply or decreasing of supply through energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is very basic measure, but this is not the reason that we are skipping it. And when you are asking regarding bottlenecks, I wouldn't say bottleneck, but I would say we need to play smart. There are a lot of legislative in preparation, a lot of different programs, RePower, tenders, and so on. And here is on us that we are playing on the smart way, either European level or locally. Regarding legislation, regarding incentives, because more energy that we are saving, less energy we need. So I would conclude that on that way.
That's a very good message. Thank you. Michael, I invite you to obviously reflect on the immediate questions, but also any other remarks or comments you'd like to make overall. So please.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to build on what the colleagues already said. I represent here the Business Association Change for the Better. My background is in NGO management, and I work professionally for innovation agency established by city, region governments, and 4 universities. We work with startups, with the companies in the region, and in just 30 minutes, I'm leaving for even called Velvet Innovation, and we really believe that the collaboration among sectors of the all quadruple helix is really crucial for any innovation to happen. And and we need a lot of innovations and an innovative mindset now. So the cooperation and trust among the key stakeholders is the crucial we need now.
Great. Well, I think let me just add a couple of final thoughts before offering a few thank yous and wrapping things up. I mean, as someone based in Brussels, but looking at the sort of wider European perspective, hearing both from the policymakers, a couple of whom obviously are working in Brussels, as well as obviously in the region that you're all based, I'm struck by the extent to which there is now perceptible much dynamism and energy behind this agenda, in obviously from what you're saying from consumers and public opinion. Obviously the business world is alive to this issue, even if there are challenges and bottlenecks, as we've heard, to overcome, and indeed ahead of some of the policy or policy making thinking in the region, which is obviously an invitation to push more and to create the type of virtuous circle that ensures that the right frameworks and the right incentives and support is in place for you to invest and to develop your businesses and to innovate. Exactly as Mikhail was saying, this is an enormous innovation agenda, and I think one that, again, hearing from all of you, is becoming a conversation not just about avoiding the worst impacts of climate change and other problems, but about the opportunities, the improvements in life, well-being, experience, but also obviously in business and prosperity terms. So I certainly come away feeling energized and enthused by what I've heard, and we hope through CISL, CLG Europe, our partners, obviously Mikhail and his colleague, but others in the region, to continue to support this activity, to exchange best practice, all of the information that we've heard today, and to build obviously on the urgency of the moment, but also the momentum that we've heard. So I'd like simply to conclude by thanking all of you for your time, those in their absence who were joining us at the beginning of the meeting as well. To thank all of Mikhail and his colleagues, as well as my colleagues in CISL and CLG Europe and its membership for all the work. As I'm sure all of you know, how much effort goes in behind the scenes to make anything like this happen. There are many more people. I'm just the front face for a lot of hard work that's done behind the scenes here. And to wish all of you, therefore, successful ongoing efforts and work, and that with the hope that we'll succeed, obviously, but remain in close contact and, as Mikhail said, collaborate and build trust between us. So with that, thank you to all of you once again. Thank you to all of our participants and the audience that's been with us these past couple of hours. And I wish you a good end of afternoon, a good rest of week, and hopefully we will see each other again in due course. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.